Hi guys! So we had a really great question here, and the question was, I would like to know, if a guy is actually emotional and not just in his headspace. For example, like feeling emotionally safe with the guy instead of the lip service that they give. Now, what a brilliant question. I love the way that you phrase that because that really is sometimes what it can end up actually being. It's just a lip service. And so, look, it really depends how long have you known this person? What's the pattern? But what I can already hear you just have to start to listen to your gut because the fact that you're even asking this question, it's already kind of telling me that you're much better at separating the bullshit from the truth than what I actually think you realize. Now, I also do understand, like I really, really understand the fine line that can be here, especially if a man communicates his emotions, then, I mean, yes, it means that he's connected to you and is also connected to his heart. It could mean that, and but here's the catch. Sometimes you have a guy and he communicates to you, expresses his feelings to you, and it's more intellectual, right? It's more intellectual rather than from a heart center. Now, it doesn't mean that they have bad intentions. It's not always the case. It could be that there's a wounded relationship with the mother or with the father that caused them to shut down. It could be that someone really truly hurt them in the past and they have a genuine fear and a vulnerability, and now they're shutting down because of that, not because they don't love you, not because they don't care, but because of their own wounds that they don't feel that or they have the capacity to deal with it and to heal that at the same time. And so, sometimes people make the effort because they feel so blocked. They make the effort to intellectually communicate how they feel because they don't know how else to relate to you, especially if you are a heart person. If you are a heart person, then you are going to intimidate that person even more because your beautiful heart space is now calling them into their heart space power. And they're like, now you're calling me to come and step into my most vulnerable point. Sometimes people can actually become aggressive. They can become passive aggressive or offensive, or they might try to play it off like it's nothing by giving you some smart ass answers. But they're not actually not in all cases. I'll get to that in a minute. But in most cases, they're not necessarily playing a game. They just feel so inadequate within themselves that they don't know how to act and react to you. And sometimes there's a fear maybe of losing you, so they might start to say things to you that they think you might want to hear because they don't want to lose the connection. But they also have a sense of inadequacy of how to meet you as to where you are in your heart space. So that aspect can be a little bit, it can be confusing, but please keep in mind here, if you are a heart person and you know that, and you are with someone that's not necessarily meaning that they don't love you, but they love you in a different way. They love you more intellectually rather than emotionally because they don't have the capacity to love you in the way that you need them to. Then be very mindful that you might find yourself down the path at some point where you are going to start to feel lonely in the relationship. You might start to, arguments with this person because you're going to start to feel frustrated because your emotional needs are not being met in the way that you need this person to step up to. And if you might then subconsciously provoke them to get a reaction from them because you're trying to save the relationship, and then this person is going to fight back because now you're asking him to step into a light that he doesn't feel ready for. And most cases, when someone is in a place or a state where they're being pushed to step into a big vulnerability where there's a wound, it's in our natural biological, not even conscious, biological reaction to fight it. Because we are biologically designed to not feel vulnerable. We hate that. We don't, and we become suspicious of people or circumstances that might push us into a place of discomfort because it triggers that survival reaction of, I want to stay where I am. So when you're dealing with someone like that, be mindful that you don't end up over time because you love the person and you're a good person and you want to make this work. But over time, even though the relationship might seem perfect, you're emotionally going to suffer because they can't give you emotionally what you need. And that would be a shame because this is now creating an incompatibility. Even though you might be compatible on 95% of the aspects, but that 5% is going to become so big that it's going to overpower and overshadow the 95%. And especially if it's one of your values for love that is incredibly important to have a heart connection, then, if that person doesn't change, if they don't heal, if they don't start to open up, then it's going to be a very hard road to walk. It's going to be a very hard road to walk because you will have to adjust to that person if they're going to dig their heels in. And it's not because they don't love you. And be mindful as well that you don't throw that line at them, but if you love me, then you'll do X, Y, Z. That's asking for trouble, because that person is going to feel manipulated and pushed into a corner where they face the threat now of losing you, but they now also face the threat of having to deal with something that they don't have necessarily the emotional, intellectual capacity to deal with. Maybe they don't have the tools, maybe they don't have the confidence, maybe they've built so many coping mechanisms around being a certain way that they're too scared to change because they don't know what the path is going to look like at the other end. Sometimes our secondary gains and our coping mechanisms can be so incredibly strong that we're willing to sacrifice relationships just so that we can be and feel safe. And that's only because of a strong patterning of these coping mechanisms having been repeated over such a long period of time that it's become a lifestyle. It's almost like formed part of the character, even though it's not who they really are. They perceive it as being part of the character because it keeps them safe. So, and then you also get the bullshitters. Absolutely. You get the lip service bullshitters. And listen, if that's what you feel you're dealing with, because if that's questioning you, if that's something that's bugging you, bothering you, there's a reason why it's bothering you, because your intuition, your inner voice is trying to speak to you. So what I would do is put your hand on your heart and go back to conversations that you had with this person where you felt that you were being given the lip service, right? How did it make you feel in that moment when you were with that person? Not meaning how you emotionally reacted. How did you receive that information? How did that make you feel in your heart? And then put your hand down on your gut and then ask yourself, how did I feel in my gut instinct response with this, with whatever it is that this person was telling me? Because listen, let's also be realistic that the moment a person starts to, start to fly high with, unrealistic, that seems too good to be true statements, then the person is probably bullshitting you. They're playing a game. They're having fun. They're not even really probably serious in this. And what would also be a really good idea is perhaps to ask the person, what are your goals with this relationship? Is this something that you see maybe to work on, to invest in, or is this something that you want to take day by day? Because there you will get a very clear answer. Because listen, if someone is not serious about you, then you're going to feel that lack of emotional investment or, energy, not necessarily emotional, because if they are emotionally unavailable, then of course you're going to feel the emotional absence. But don't necessarily see that as them maybe not being interested in you, because it could be that there's wound, but it could also be that you're dealing with a player. And normally when you want to look at someone who's a player, look at their consistency. Do they follow through on things that they say that they will? Do they listen to what your language for love is, and do they try to, at least meet you halfway in that sense? Because if you start to see a laziness in that aspect, because even if someone is intellectually unavailable, and if you communicate certain acts or words or things that you would like the person to do to help, them to make you feel that they care about you, and if they can't live up to that, then that would be a red flag for me. Because even if you're emotionally unavailable, they have the capacity to listen. And if someone who listens should normally care. And so if someone doesn't listen, in my opinion, there's not enough pull, there's not enough weight in that for me to feel, okay, well, I'm going to invest back in that. Because if someone can't listen, if they can't take in what you're saying, then you're dealing with a problem. Because if it's already now like that, it's not going to change. It's going to continue to stay like that unless that person changes themselves. And I don't know, how long is that stopwatch going to be running for? So you really have to be in this and decide for yourself, where's my limitations? What am I going to put up with? Where's my thresholds with what I'm going to allow, and what am I emotionally willing to invest in this? And up until what point will I feel satisfied with this person emotionally investing back in me? So all these limitations, if they cannot be met, or if that person continues to fail that, I think you might be having what the classic cases you would call lip service. So there's so much more to say about this, and I will be designing a really kick-ass, deep, in-depth healing relationship premium course. Also on my YouTube channel, I will be releasing a lot of free videos about relationships and relationship dynamics. So do keep an eye out for that, because it's going to be good. Thanks for this great question.
Hi guys, thank you for joining me, and remember to grab your copy of Metaphysical Anatomy on Amazon, 679 medical ailments. And I also wrote about the psychosomatic root causes of that, and I'm spoiling it because I even added key points for you to start looking at important questions that you can ask yourself to start improving your quality of life. And also remember to catch me on Instagram, Evette Rose 1 with the digit 1, and Metaphysical Anatomy on our Facebook fan page. Bye guys!